Empyrion Galactic Survival's brand new Dark Faction DLC changes the game's dynamic quite considerably with new functions, weapons, new enemies, and whole new scenario for you to conquer. In this video, I'm going to explain everything you need to know in order to get through this scenario and succeed. Now, when you start out here in the Dark Faction scenario, you start on a ship with an alarm blaring, the console directly in front of you. You can turn off the alarm and turn on the security camera here. Gives you a lovely little feed of what the hell is going on in your ship. Now, all you need to do at this point is just follow through the PDA prompts on the right of the screen there, and just make sure you try and stick to them as best you can, because if you go off of them even slightly, then it can upset the order of things a little bit. But don't worry, if you do happen to fail to pay attention as you progress, you can just tick things off here in the PDA. Just hit F1 and go to solo missions, and you'll see the PDA prompts that you see on the right of the screen, right in the middle here. You can just tick them off if you do get ahead of yourself and ahead of the prompts. But if you can stick to them, then things will just flow a little bit easier. And this is the same for sort of vanilla Empyrion as well, not just the DLC, but it's a good tip nonetheless. Now, pretty soon after that, you will acquire your first bit of new tech that comes with the DLC, and that is this sword here. Now, it comes with a reasonably sort of slow firing, but it is an AoE swipe of the sword. So when you do come up against multiple enemies, one swipe will generally damage more than one, and providing they're within the sword's arc there. What you might not also realize is if you right-click with the sword equipped, you will get a temporary 1000 hit point shield that protects your character from damage. This represented by the big blue 1000 just above your toolbar there. That slowly depletes after a short time and will fade away. As you can see, it started depleting already. And once it's gone until the shield ability has recharged. At the moment, there's no indication whether it's still on recharge or not. So you'll just have to keep trying until it comes back on again. But there's no limit in the number of times you can use the shield. And that's pretty much it. And it's very, very useful when dealing with a lot of melee enemies in this game, which you will have to deal with. Now, the game will have you face down one of the enemies straight away. Things you should know about these enemies is they are pretty much impervious to standard weaponry. The reason you get this sword so early on is because you will need to fight the intruders on board your ship straight away. Now, they are vulnerable to the sword, but if you were to try and use, say, the survival tool here, you'd get pretty much nothing done. You have to use the weapons of the scenario to defeat these particular enemies. You can see this is just a dog. There is also larval forms of the enemies, and then soldiers, and finally queens of the enemy. Here's a larva form. These things are pretty easy, but there you go. There's two of them I just killed in one swipe of the sword, just to demonstrate that AoE ability there. Now, the next subject I wanted to talk about was this stuff, Symelite Raw. There are three forms of this Symelite stuff. Raw, refined, and processed. Now, processed is the most valuable, I suppose, but basically you're going to need an awful lot of this stuff to get through the brand new tech tree of the Dark Faction DLC here. So any opportunity you see to gather this raw Symelite out in the wild, do it. You will also find occasionally processed and refined Symelite in loot boxes every now and again. But yes, most of the new enemies that we just saw, such as the dog and the larva form, will drop the raw form of this Symelite. Make sure that you pick up as much as you can. Now, the missions will take you to a UCH research station where you have one of these research consoles here. But eventually, once you've unlocked the initial processing and stuff of Symelite, you can build your own research station here. This is how you actually progress through the tech tree of the Dark Faction. Now, the tech tree is visible here in F3, the tech tree, as is the other, but you cannot unlock anything here with unlock points, okay? You have to use this research console. So everything is locked behind the amount of research points that you have in here. Now, the reason I would say you want to produce. The reason I say that Symelite is the most process Symelite is the most valuable is because that will unlock, each one of those will give you 3 research points, whereas the raw only gives you 1. All right, so you want to start your research station here by adding research points. And then we have process Symelite in our inventory. So that's what it's picking up. And it's saying plus 3 research points per item. So that should give us 120 because we had 40 in there, okay? That gives us 122 research points because we had 2 already. And that means that we can now start research. Now, in this save, I've already unlocked all the handheld devices, and I'm currently unlocking the building blocks, but we've also got equipment, small vessels and equipment capital vessels. It would appear that 122 there is not enough for any of that stuff. And as you can see, no options are appearing for us. Unfortunately, at this point, it doesn't seem to tell us how many points are required for anything. So you just have to kind of gather as much Symelite and guess, essentially. Keep adding. If it's 122 is not enough, keep gathering more, do another bunch of processing, add some more until you get an option in one of these to unlock or research something. Okay, so for example, I've just given myself another bunch of process Symelite here. Then we can start research here. And there we go. Symelite armor blocks now require 200 points. So you can probably expect the requirements of these things to go up and up and up the more you go into it. But just to have a look at what you can get, the dark field neutralizer will come onto that in a second, and then you start getting into ship and base weapons and stuff like that. So base blaster turrets, cannons and stuff like that. I'm not 100% sure that you'd really want to use a base in this scenario, but the CV ones definitely, and then you can also get SV, HV, Symelite, plasma cannons as well. These are going to be very, very useful for some of the POIs you're going to be coming across. So how do you get this Symelite stuff after the initial tutorial? Well, you got to kind of go and throw yourself into mortal danger to do it. After the initial sort of introduction to the Dark Faction, you are on unconquered or uncorrupted planets. There's no Symelite anywhere on these. In order to get more Symelite, you need to go to corrupted or conquered planets. And that's quite easy to see on the galaxy map here. Any planet with one of these hexagons around it means that it has been conquered by the Dark Faction. You'll start here in the Hyperion cluster, which is the Dark Faction territory. And these planets will slowly be conquered over time. Eventually, they will also then start conquering planets outside of the Hyperion sector. This is one of the great things about the new Dark Faction DLC, is the galaxy is actually constantly changing. Depending on your action or inaction, depends on how far the Dark Faction actually gets in their conquest. At the moment, they're contained to just the Hyperion cluster. But if I fail to fight them over here, they will expand further and further away and potentially then spread the whole galaxy. The current amount of spread by the Dark Faction is indicated in the top right corner by that red square. There's an orange outline to that red square that is slowly being filled in. And when that orange outline fills the entire square, the Dark Faction has essentially won. The entire galaxy has fallen. Anyway, I was talking about how to get more Symelite. Well, like I said, you have to throw yourself in mortal danger. I've come down here to a planet that is definitely conquered by the Dark Faction. In the local system map, you can see this by the double exclamation marks after the planet here. Once you come down onto this planet, and double check that gravity before you do, because in the dark field, which again I will come to in a minute, your ship's performance is even more affected by gravity and environmental changes. Okay, so once you've come down onto one of these planets, what you're looking for is something like this. And I'm probably going to either freeze or die of radiation down here, but it's worth it just to show you guys what is going on. This is an overgrowth, and you'll find these all over the place on infected planets. They are protected by some bad guys, so watch out. There's one right there. Let's go for an exploding arrowhead. Okay. Oh, hello. I've been snuck upon by some infected Xeraxes. You're going to need a shield here. Shields up. All right, so this is a soldier. So this is one of the hardest ones, but I'm using the upgraded laser sword now, which, as you can see, quite good. And that shield has saved my life. There is no doubt about that. So yeah, laser sword, shield, very useful combination. The bow here is good for taking long shots and stuff like that, and is also effective against them. Let's see if I can get to the reason I came here before I die of environmental conditions. These overgrowths have these eggs, and they have Symelite in them. So that's how you get it. Obviously, you know, be better prepared than I've been here, because I'm about to die. But also make sure that you get the Symelite off of any of the dead Dark Faction creatures you kill, like I said before. Whereas the Xerax here and other creatures like the Xerax, they'll just be carrying their normal loot, not Symelite. Alright, well, there we go. That's how we get more Symelite. Hopefully you'll do it, unlike me, and survive. Now then, the dark field. Keep talking about this dark field thing, and it is, well, not really a visual or obvious thing to show you. The dark field is kind of an energy force that surrounds planets that are infected. Okay, so they have this hexagon around them. Oh, look at that. Within a few minutes of me saying, they're expanding. They're expanding. They've moved into the rest of the galaxy over there. Okay, so the dark field is an effect that takes place on any planet that is currently conquered. And it affects all of your tools systems. You can see that my ship's generators are running at 47% of their capacity. That shouldn't be happening on a 0.95G planet. It's happening because of the dark field. Okay, part of the tech research that we found earlier was a dark field neutralizer. Again, you want to be careful here. These are for bases and these are for CVs, okay? If I was to have a dark field neutralizer, especially a tier 3 one, on my ship, then the ship would behave pretty much at about 100%, maybe 95% efficiency, even in a strong dark field. Now, as it is, we've got a fairly mediocre dark field here, and the ship is already struggling to perform. In fact, I'm worried at the moment about getting stranded here. The dark field seems to get stronger the longer the planet is being occupied by the dark faction. So bear that in mind, and obviously make sure that you have enough fuel to counter the extra generators load. You may also need to increase the amount of generators you have to counteract that until you can get these dark field neutralizers in place. After all, you do need to come to infected planets to build up your Symelite stock. Now, how do we get rid of the dark field? Well, we're staring at it, basically. That over there is called a dark spire. I think it's a dark spire. Dark pillar, sorry, not spire, pillar. And oof, we need to get off this planet. At the bottom of this particular dark spire is a very, very powerful POI. As you can see, it's got weapons, it's got lasers and stuff like that, and your shields will not last long here. So this has got a advanced shield generator on it, about 18,000 shields, and they just turned off for some reason. I've got this set to Control K, so it's definitely not Control X. So I don't think I hit Control and X accidentally there, but there we go. The shield's just turned off, and now my generators are going to blow up. We need to get off this planet. We need to really get off this planet. Ascend? Ascendio? Oh god. Okay, so this is the situations you can get yourself into in the dark field. But essentially, if you conquer that POI, and you will need a lot of medication to make it through there, and of course, don't forget all the arrows in the world, probably multiple backup swords, the best armor you can get, and the grenade launcher to boot, just to make any kind of impact there. Once you destroy that POI, that will destroy the Dark Pillar, and therefore this world will be liberated from the Dark Faction. Now, don't worry, not all Dark Pillars have those obscene POIs at the base of them. Although I've not seen it, and despite going around as many planets as I can, some of them can just be the pillar itself, and some of them can be defended by just a few turrets. In any case, it seems that the turrets seem to ignore you if you're on foot. So, maybe just park the ship and approach on foot, and you can get in. But then you are far away from your ship, so up to you. Yeah, I'm certainly not going to spoil the interior of these things. I'll let you discover that horror for yourself. But to save you a little bit of time, The entrance is on this side of the POI, okay? You can see the two giant red balls, and you got that kind of arch deal thing going on there. That's the way in. Good luck. There is a series of switches in there that will destroy the core of this POI and take out the dark spire. And like I said, when you do, the dark field goes with it. You've just saved this planet. Now, as you can see, while I've been recording this, and I have spent a bit of time hopping around planets looking for a spire without that giant POI on the bottom, but in that short time, we have lost 4 more systems to the dark faction. It moves pretty fast, guys. You do need to hustle. It does give you a bit of, a grace period while it's dealing with the Hyperion cluster over there. But once it seems to get to the Zaros cluster here, it really seems to accelerate for some reason. So, yeah, you need to get on it, basically. Find a way to deal with those POIs quickly. Find a way to take them down. Get as much Symelite as you can on the way. In terms of every other resource that you're going to need in order to build new ships, SVs, HVs, things that can deal with high gravity, things that can deal with the dark field, etc., that you're just going to have to try and find a way of mining that stuff quickly. I suggest getting a nice little mining vessel in very, very early as you can, basically, and getting those resources in bulk. There goes Allegro, as I was talking there. So yeah, it doesn't give you a lot of time. Now, at the time of recording this, there may be changes coming. I know that obviously Elion will be looking at feedback very closely at this time, at the launch of the DLC. So things like the speed at which it travels through the galaxy may change. Things which the ratio of those POI dungeons appear may change, and so on and so forth. So things seem like quite difficult at the moment, which I believe is intentional, as this is more geared towards veteran players than it is new players. Then these things might change. They might change. But at the time of recording, that's the deal. Anyway, I think that's pretty much all you need to know about the Dark Faction DLC and how to work your way through this scenario. Once you get through the initial phases, it basically turns into a campaign of territory control and trying to hold back the flood that is the Dark Faction. In any case, I hope you found it useful, and I hope it's alleviated some of the maybe more intimidating features of this DLC. In any case, I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. Is there anything I missed out that's useful to players taking this DLC on? Please do share in the comments down below. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.